So, what if I told you that the secret to writing something people absolutely can't stop talking about? Well, it isn't in some fancy creative writing class. It's actually hidden in the US Constitution. I know, it sounds pretty wild, right? But the way the Bill of Rights came to be back in 1791, it holds this incredible lesson on how to structure your ideas to earn trust. So let's dive in and see how the framers' mission to build trust can completely change your writing, starting now.
This quote really gets to the heart of the whole thing. We tend to think of freedom and structure as, well, total opposites. But what if structure is the very thing that gives freedom its power? That's the core idea we're going to unpack together.
And that really is the million-dollar question for any writer or creator, isn't it? It's one thing to have a great idea, but it's a whole other challenge to present it in a way that feels solid, reliable, and actually useful. Well, believe it or not, the blueprint for that exact problem was drafted over 2 centuries ago, during a time when an entire country was feeling pretty unsure about its future.
Okay, let's set the scene. The year is 1787. The United States Constitution has just been drafted, and honestly, people are nervous. They needed a lot more than just promises. They needed solid guarantees.
You could really feel the fear back then. A powerful new government was coming into being, and people were genuinely worried their freedoms could just be swept away. They didn't want fancy speeches about liberty. They demanded something tangible, explicit, written-down protections they could actually point to.
So it's this crisis of trust that brings James Madison into the picture. But for our purposes today, I don't want you to think of him as a politician. Think of him as an architect of ideas, the guy whose job was to build a framework of trust for an entire nation.
And you can see, this whole process wasn't exactly quick. From those initial fears in '87, it took 2 full years for Madison to sort through hundreds of suggestions and boil them down to a focused proposal. Then another 2 years for it to become the Bill of Rights. This was not a rushed job. It was deliberate, careful construction.
And just think about how he did it. Madison wasn't writing these flowery, emotional essays. He was building something. Each amendment was like a pillar in a building, super clear, distinct, and designed for one specific purpose: freedom of speech, the right to a trial. It was all about the structure.
And this just nails the core lesson, doesn't it? The reason the Bill of Rights has lasted so long is because of its precision. It gave people a clear, reliable system they could actually understand and depend on. Passion can fade, but a solid, precise structure, that endures. And that kind of clarity is what builds unshakable trust.
Okay, so what does a 200-year-old document have to do with us today? Well, while we might not be afraid of a new government, modern readers are facing their own overwhelming force: total information overload.
It's a perfect parallel. Just like those citizens in the 18th century needed their rights written down, today's readers need ideas that are written down in a framework. They're drowning in a sea of articles, videos, and books. They're not looking for more random information. They're desperate for frameworks that help them make sense of it all.
And the stakes here are absolutely huge. Bad structure just creates this narrative fog, It leaves your readers confused and totally dependent on you. But good structure, it does the exact opposite. It makes your ideas portable, it creates clarity, and it gives readers a system they can actually own and use for themselves.
So, what are we really talking about here? It's this. Structuring your ideas is really an act of service to your reader. It's about creating these clear, defensible principles. The whole point is to protect the reader from getting confused and to give them something that holds up even when you're not around to explain it.
So what's the solution? Let's get practical. We're going to dive into a framework inspired by Madison's work. I call it the 5 Writers' Amendments.
Just 5 core principles. Only 5. The original Bill of Rights had 10, which is kind of the upper limit of what our brains can reliably remember. So we're going to focus on 5 really essential amendments for every single writer.
All right, here they are. Let's break them down. Number 1 is clarity. Think about it. The First Amendment is about freedom of speech, speaking plainly. For us as writers, that means getting your main point, your thesis, out there right in the first chapter. Don't hide it. Next up, number 2, evidence. The right to a trial is all about presenting proof, right? Well, your writing needs to do the same thing. You've got to support your claims with data, with stories, with something solid. Then there's accessibility. The Bill of Rights was designed to have no crazy barriers. Your writing should be the same. Ditch the jargon, write simply. Number 4 is consistency. People needed protection from random arbitrary rules. Your readers do too. That means keeping one consistent voice and style the whole way through. And last but not least, number 5, application. A write is useless if you can't act on it. Same goes for your ideas. You have to end your chapters with clear, actionable next steps for your reader.
And putting this into practice is pretty straightforward. Just follow this checklist. First, audit your work for clarity. Then, name your core principles. Make them sticky, make them memorable. Then test if a reader can explain your ideas to someone else. And this one is so important. Build a visual diagram. If you can't draw your system on a napkin, your readers definitely can't internalize it.
This all brings us to our final and maybe the most powerful idea of all. It's a bit of a paradox, but once you really get it, it will fundamentally change how you look at your own creative work.
So many of us writers believe that structure limits our creativity, but the truth is the exact opposite. Structure doesn't stifle creativity, it actually protects it. Think of it this way. Boundaries aren't a cage. They're the guardrails on a windy mountain road, and they're there to keep your brilliant ideas from flying right off a cliff.
And this quote just says it all. Without structure, inspiration is just intellectual confetti. It's the perfect image for what happens when amazing ideas don't have a solid foundation. They just scatter in the wind and get swept away. Structure is what turns that confetti into a lasting monument.
So I'll leave you with this final question to chew on. When someone reads your work, are you giving them a framework they can use for the rest of their lives? Or are you creating a dependency where they always have to come back to you for the answer? Because the goal, as we've seen today, is to build something so clear and so strong that it can stand all on its own.